friends, Peggy Hall back with you from thehealthyamerican.org. Welcome to the live stream here and welcome to my virtual living room. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm not going to be sharing with you any images. Hey friends, Peggy Hall back with you from, let me cue that up here. I'm not going to be sharing with you any images of the Lahaina fire. There have been so many traumatic images, and I don't want to subject you to that any further. That is part of the reason that these evil doers inflict these catastrophes upon the unsuspecting population. And in fact, probably on tomorrow, which is Friday, and the weekend, I'm going to step away a little bit from the fire coverage. I know many of you are asking for me to bring more, and I have dozens and dozens of videos that I'm researching and things that just don't add up. And I do want to bring that to you because it's important that we use this horrific event to help open the eyes of other people. You know what's going on. I know you do because you've left so many incredible comments on my videos. And I just want to thank all of you for being so sophisticated and intelligent and willing to open your eyes and to look at the information that I've researched and presented to you. And at the end of this video, I'm going to read some of your comments that really warmed my heart, and I do appreciate everyone. Some of you also asked about donating. There is a link in the description box below if you'd like to support my work. In terms of donating to those that were hard hit in Maui on that island, I did a video about the Oprah and Rock Fund and why I don't recommend, I personally am not going to support that. I personally am not going to support the American Red Cross, as I call it. And I, at this time, don't have a fund to recommend other than if you, like me, are interested in the welfare of the animals that were displaced during this horrific event. There is the Maui Humane Society, and I personally, that's something that I support are the local animal shelters. So I don't know anyone personally that has reached out to me that needs help. If that does come about, I will let you know. So let's dive into the broadcast, which is the disaster by design. And here is why they do it, spelled DEW. You know that this event does not have any of the earmarks of a natural event. I have to be very, very careful now on this channel because they are taking down videos and channels of people that are speaking out against the narrative that is being pushed by Josh Green Do Deal and the others. And I will have another video coming up for you about all of the questions that nobody is asking. And what I mean by nobody is the news reporters. Why aren't they asking important questions that would help people understand what is going on? That will be a topic for a separate video. But what I want to share with you, because many of you said, Peggy, why would they do this? How could somebody intentionally inflict this sort of devastation upon the unsuspecting population? And I don't have any evidence that Josh Green Do Deal flipped the switch himself. I don't have any evidence that the cheat of police, Pelletier, which by the way means to skin, right? Like skinning the fur off of an animal. That's what the background of that name is. And I will bring you a video about the very suspicious circumstances under which the secretary of that police department died shortly after Pelletier came on board. And also, he had several formal complaints lodged against him because of his style of management. He tries to come across as a kamaaina, as a Hawaiian at heart with his Hawaiian shirts and his tattoos. He's not Hawaiian. He was brought in fresh off the boat, as they say, from Las Vegas. I've covered that on this channel before. I don't have evidence that he flipped the switch. I don't have evidence that the fire chief, who was not on the island, by the way, flipped the switch. But I do have evidence that they are all covering something up because they are not answering the questions. As I say, I'll do a separate video on that. Let's talk about why they would do this. So I've got a video that I did when this disaster first happened a month ago. And I just want to update that a little bit now that I have more information. I've been covering this disaster since day one with nonstop coverage, often 3 videos a day, sometimes 4 or 5. I'll probably have 2 videos for you today. And that's because I want to stay on top of this story and I want to expose the evildoers. They have overplayed their hand. And I think that will be a title of an upcoming video that I'll do. I'm going to expose their duper's delight, where they are smirking and laughing and mocking you and those that were injured, and the fatalities and the homes that were lost. It's absolutely despicable. And I'm going to stay on this story because I don't see anybody else doing that. I do see people using my research, which is great. I want the word to get out there. And let's talk about this. Here is why they do it. Number one, these kinds of events that have happened in California, which is why it really hits home for me. And I've been to Hawaii many times, including Maui. I have friends there. I have healthy Americans there. My heart goes out to everyone that has been affected by this. It is terrorism. This terrorizes the population. Now, I remember as a young child, there was a very short-lived flare-up of flames in our house. I was probably about maybe 9 or 10 years old. And to this day, right, that was decades ago, to this day, I still get a little start or a little jump if I see somebody cooking and there's some flames coming out of the pan. Imagine the terror that has been inflicted upon the population. It is likely going to linger for a lifetime. And again, I am just heartbroken over not just what has gone on Maui, but in so many places in our country where people have been terrorized by these events or with the threat of an event. So in California, we're always being told that it's fire season and, you have the fires coming. And of course, on the East Coast, you have all the hurricanes, and that can cause a sense of terror in people, especially if they are not prepared. So I've done videos on this channel before about being prepared in terms of needing to leave, having all of your information at hand. And you can check my playlist. I have a preppers playlist, and I also have a Maui fire playlist. So again, I've covered so much on this channel that I hope you will go back and watch those videos if you're interested in learning more. The second reason that they do this is because when they wipe out people's homes, like they've done in California, in Canada, in Oregon, in Washington, in Tennessee, in Greece, and of course, in Hawaii, it destroys the opportunity for private home ownership. They are going after your home and mine every way that they can. They're going after it with the increased insurance rates. And that's another reason that falls onto this list that I'm going to talk about in a moment. And they are trying to increase obviously the mortgage rate, so it's more difficult for people to purchase a home. But in terms of just burning your home to the ground, I know people that lost their homes in some California fires, and they didn't even have the wherewithal to rebuild. They just felt like, what's the use? I built that home, it burnt to the ground. I'm just going to rent now, and I won't feel so connected to the home in case it's lost again. So I believe that is one of their intentional harms, is to reduce and destroy the opportunity for private home ownership. It also, ironically, destroys the rental market. At least in Hawaii, and by at least, I mean, this is horrible to know that in Hawaii, the governor, Josh Green, Deal, as I call him, how appropriate that his last name is Green, and he's all about the green agenda. So he no longer wants people that don't live in Hawaii to own rental properties. He has appointed himself some sort of dictator now with these emergencies, and he's just calling the shots, calling the clots. How about that? And because that's what he did all during the cooties. Yeah, he had his whiteboard and he was terrorizing people with the numbers so that they would be afraid and suffocate themselves and become human pincushions. This isn't this guy's first rodeo, all right? He's been around the block a long, long time. I've done lots of exposés on how he tries to bamboozle people with these fake staged accidents that he just happened to be at, and he's wearing Band-Aids all over his fingers. I exposed that in a couple of videos. So this Green Deal, this public serpent, has declared a moratorium on home sales if a real estate agent reached out to you to sell your house. Okay, how is that remotely legal? What if someone wants to sell their house? What if they were about ready to leave the island? What if they were an off-island owner of the property and they had planned on selling anyway because they were going to retire or maybe they needed the money? And now the Hawaiian government is telling you that you're not able to do that? That is going to get some challenges. And maybe he hasn't pushed that far yet, but he definitely has that in the pipeline. He already said that you're supposed to apparently call 911 if you got an unsolicited offer from a real estate agent. So you need to be, it's very interesting about that. I believe that people should have the right to do what they want with their property. He does not want that rental market. It is in their plans for Maui and for the whole state of Hawaii in their Build Back Better United Nations. I call them WEFers. That's the World Economic Forum. These are fake, phony, fraudulent stand-in governments that are unelected. And they are the ones that are calling the clots and telling these cities and the governors and the governors of the states and the mayors of the cities are going along with it. So part of that, what he wants to do is to reduce tourism altogether. And tourism is the #1 economic driver in Hawaii. And what about all those that work at hotels or have surf schools or smoothie shops, or they rent out scooters or surfboards? So when the tourism industry goes down, their business goes down. So it's so short-sighted. I do not care for the government getting involved in what should be a free market economy. That goes to #4. This type of terrorism, these types of acts destroy private businesses. So I just gave you an example of that. What about those that had brick and mortar and their smoothie shop burned down and the surf shop burnt down, and maybe somebody had a preschool and their preschool burnt down, and the bicycle rental place? Are they just going to be able to start right back up again? Now, I've run small businesses, as I'm doing right now, the Healthy American, and it's very, very difficult to get that business up and running and to have it be viable. So this type of terror, this type of destruction by design, it ticks the boxes of so many of their evil desires for the unsuspecting population. So it also destroys not just private business, but small business. Those kind of go hand in hand. I had them as #4 and #5. And I showed you in my video yesterday, and to my knowledge, I'm the first that broke this story. I just like to dig around, and I was digging on the County of Maui website, and I found that the very area that was burned in downtown Lahaina had already been earmarked for what's called a transportation corridor, like a major transportation corridor. And that was back in 2020. They also have their own Agenda 2030 that they call it, exactly modeled after the United Nations 2030. Now, you personally may be in favor of the 15-minute city and no cars, and you can bike everywhere and walk everywhere and ride on public transportation. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as it's not being dictated by the United Nations. If the community itself sincerely wants to go in that direction, that's one thing. But to have these artificial New World disorder governments impose that upon the population, that's where I draw the line. So they do not want tourism. They do not want small business. They do not want private business. And they make no bones about that. They want the government to operate these rental properties. Josh Green Deal himself, and I did grab that. Oh my gosh, I'll have to play it in another video. I did grab that clip of him saying that very thing, where he said, we are going to find a way for the government, for the state to take these lands. Let me see if I have that. I'll try to cue it up for you maybe in another video. And he started to walk that back. Actually, I hate that phrase. He stopped saying that after we exposed that language. And then he said, oh, no, it's going to be exactly the way that the Hawaiians want it. In fact, I found it. Let me play this for you real quick. I'll share my screen. And this is part of their new Green Deal. So let me share, and we'll hop right on over here. And the reason why I want to continue to share this in my videos is so that there will be a record of it, because I promise you this likely is going to come down off of Twitter. let me increase the volume. Here we go.
So that we can put it into workforce housing, to put it back into families.
Sorry.
Thinking about ways for the state to acquire that land so that we can put it into.
Let me make sure it's not. Okay, let me just slow it down a little bit. He says, I'm looking for ways for the state to acquire that land for it to go into workforce housing.
Thinking about ways for the state to acquire that land so that we can put it into workforce housing, to put it back into families, or to make it open spaces in perpetuity as a memorial.
To put it as open spaces in perpetuity as a memorial. Oh, you mean right down that transportation corridor where people can walk by it and be re-traumatized again and again, just like they do for all of those other orchestrated events, so that you can continue to see the victims? Yeah, no, the people of Lahaina have said they don't want that.
To people who were lost. We want this to be something that we remember after the pain passes.
We want there to be something that we will remember after the pain passes, so they can continually inflict more pain. Now, I'm all in favor of a tasteful memorial, but to have that downtown area be cleared for that seems excessive, in my opinion. What say you?
As a magic place.
We want it to be a magic place. All right, that's a cult language. Argue with me if you like. It's a cult language.
And Lahaina will rebuild. The tragedy right now is the loss of life.
Okay, and you do see the melted out glass. I said I wasn't going to show you any images, but you do see the melted glass in the window. You know, in order to melt glass, heat has to be about 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Outdoor fires burn at around 14 to 1,500. So less than 50%. You have to have the heat be twice as hot to melt that glass, unless, of course, it came from a different source of energy. You know, for example, I don't know, right off the top of my head, I might say microwave energy.
The buildings can be rebuilt over time.
Notice the yellow pants, yellow on the car. I'm going to be doing a video about disaster by the color.
Even the banyan tree may survive, but we don't want this to be a clear space where then, yes, people from overseas just come and decide they're going to take it.
We don't want this to be a space where people from overseas can decide they're just going to come and take it. What do you mean overseas? Do you mean on the mainland? Or do you mean like other countries?
The state will take it and preserve it first.
The state will take it first. All right. I'm going to do a video for you early next week all about eminent domain, where the government can just take your land because they feel like it. They can say, this is for the public good. We want it. End of story. I believe that what he's saying now is, we don't want you to sell your land. We don't want you to sell your property. Why is that? I wonder if it's because the state is going to take it instead. That's what I think. I'm going to continue with my list here of reasons why the evildoers do what they do, because many of you have said, I just don't understand it. Why would they do this? Well, it also restricts movement. So when there is, and maybe not on Maui per se, but let's say there is an earthquake, or there is a flood, or there is a hurricane coming, and the government will put in these evacuation orders, and they are really conditioning people. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't evacuate or follow what is going to be the right thing for you in these situations to stay safe. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that the government can use these situations to condition you to restrict your movement, that you have to go to that evacuation center. You're not allowed to leave. They closed this Lahaina town. They didn't allow people in. By the way, I've got a video to share with you in another upcoming live stream of some fellow that rode his bike in. And I want you to look at this now. It's been about a month. You may have seen it, got about 100,000 views. And at the very outset of the disaster and the trauma and the fear, often people's own emotions prevent them from seeing reality and facts. And later, as the emotions calm down a bit and you look at something again, you're like, oh, I didn't notice that. I didn't notice he was kind of chuckling. He doesn't seem sincere. So it's always important to go back and watch and listen and look at things that you may not have caught the first time around if you want to improve your critical thinking skills. All right, number 8. The reason why they do this is because it's their opportunity to suspend the law because of an emergency. Don't you know? Well, didn't you know that Josh Green New Deal, as I reported in one of my previous videos, actually suspended the laws related to housing prior to this fire disaster in Lahaina? Yes. He actually ran for governor on the platform that he was going to declare an emergency proclamation over housing because he said, you know what, the legislature is just taking too long. There's too much red tape. We need to cut through the red tape. So instead of working through the legislature and appropriating the money and deciding on where the contracts are going to go, I'm just going to appoint my own housing initiative. I'm going to call it, let's see, Build Beyond Barriers. It's in lowercase letters 666. And it really has the similar ring to Build Back Better, or is that Burn Back Better? Yes, I did a video with that title, Burn Back Better, just like they did in Canada, just like in California, just like in the Canary Islands. Gee, I wonder what island is going to be next. Probably Bermuda. I'll have to do a video on, let's take some guesses on which island is going to be taken over yet, because they all are the part of the Smart Island Initiative. Yeah, you knew that already about Hawaii, right? That Josh Green New Deal spoke at the United Nations. He said that I'm going to infuse the Sustainable Development Goals of Agenda 2021, which is now called Agenda 2030, and it goes on and on, 2040, 2050. They have a deadline to get this done in 7 years. That's why they're pushing so quickly. He said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to infuse the Sustainable Development Goals into every policy in Hawaii. I just did a video on that a couple of days ago. And I did a video on that when the fire still first happened. So yes, we know the facts. He's in hook, line, and sinker. The other of the public serpents are very shady characters that all came onto the scene roughly the same time. The more we expose them, the more they're taking back some of their comments. That's why I did that video about the mayor of Maui was clueless, because he said, I don't know what's happened. I don't know where I was. I don't know who was in charge. He literally said that. And then they gave him a script to read. Many of you said it looked like he was high. His eyes were glazed over, like just dead eyes, no emotion. And he read a script while he was wearing a blazer, so you could trust him. And the same thing, the cheat of police, the fur skinner, Pelletier, that's what it translates to from French. He came out with some scripted statements as well. Josh Green New Deal has stopped saying Build Back Better. He stopped using the words resiliency, sustainability, because we're calling him out on this. So we've got to keep the pressure on. We know what they have in store. We know about the Aloha Plus Challenge, which is the dashboard that measures all of the United Nations sustainability activities that they're doing. This is all out in the open. So we need to continue to expose this. For me, the real smoking gun is that they had already planned for this major transportation corridor to go right through the heart of Lahaina. And that's exactly part of the area that was burned. And somebody said, oh, that was just empty land. No, this is a shopping center. All right. These are people's homes that were burned. I know, not you lovely, healthy Americans, but every once in a while, somebody stumbles across the channel and they don't understand what it's about and how I do the deep digging and how I've been doing so for going on 4 years. And they don't even take the time to watch the video before they argue. So I know, because you've already replied to their comments in the comments. So those of you who are intelligent and want to learn more can actually study the information that I'm presenting. And it's irrefutable. Okay, that leads to number 9, which is the takeover of the land. In Paradise, California, I'm going to be doing some more research on this. And also in Ventura, California, the areas that were burned also were of interest to the state. They wanted to put in their high-speed rail. They're these transportation corridors. And the end game of that is to move people to these pack 'em and stack 'em, as I call them, the rabbit hutches. A lot of them are near railroad stations. You can also tell, at least in California, they have all of these really like just blatant and ugly bike lanes that no bicycles are on. And they take away a lane for people to drive on, and they paint it green with white stripes. It's an eyesore. It's a sin against beauty. And these are the road marks and the roadmap and the earmarks of these sustainable cities. They get money to do it. The city councils, you need to stay on them. You need to go to those county meetings. I shared a lot of the residents, their outrage, and I will continue to do so. I'm on this literally 24/7, friends. I'm trying to keep up with it as much as possible, and I do appreciate your support as I'm continuing to bring you this coverage. Number 10, the reason they do this is because now they can blame these catastrophes on global swarming, as I call it. The planet is on fire. We must raise taxes and get rid of institute electric cars, get rid of gas stoves, get rid of combustion engines. It's unbelievable. They want everybody to run on electricity, yet then the electric companies are being blamed for these disasters. And that goes up to my next point, which is increasing the rates of your utilities. So the water bills are going to increase. The electricity bills are going to increase. In California, the price of natural gas is going to increase. Why? Because they're going to say that we need to retrofit all of the equipment so that we won't have these kinds of disasters again. Well, isn't that part of what you're paying for already? Are they that bad of business managers that they didn't already plan for maintenance and repair and improvement? I mean, come on, you run a business. Those of you that have businesses, you plan, you set aside money for the maintenance and repair and renovation and improvement. You don't just suddenly raise all the taxes on whatever product you're selling so that you can pay for something that you should have planned for in the past. It doesn't even compute, yet they think you're stupid. These reporters and these evildoers think that you are stupid and you're not going to be able to connect the clots. All right. Must get rid of fossil fuels because the planet is on fire. Yeah, it's on fire because of the microwaves. That's why it's on fire. You can't drive. You're going to be taxed. You have to live in a 15-minute city. We better shield the sun because it's going to make the planet hotter. All of that's in the works. It fits right into this agenda, as I call it. The other thing, especially in the fires, is there are toxic chemicals that are now spewed into the air that likely are going to have other horrific side effects, like people that have asthma or some type of other respiratory condition. And then all of that can be used as a convenient cover for people that are having side effects from, I don't know what comes to mind, becoming a human pincushion, for example. And now suddenly they can say, well, the reason why Auntie passed away is because, not because she had a heart attack from the cooties cocktail, but because she inhaled the toxic debris from the fire. All right. That's possible. Okay. These events increase insurance rates. I touched on that previously, so that it will be nearly impossible for people to get fire insurance. In other situations, flood insurance, hurricane damage, in California, earthquake insurance. As far as I understand it, you can only get earthquake insurance from the government. There are no private carriers for that, which means there's no competition. The government can set the rates and you're out of luck if they don't want to cover your claim. So that adds additional stress and trauma to those individuals that are trying to get insurance. I talked about it moving people into the rabbit hutches, into the high density housing. Why? Control. Not only control, but think about this. If you've ever lived in a condominium, or maybe you've had, or maybe you currently do have roommates, you know how stressful that can be to be in a very small space with not a lot of elbow room. And there have been all sorts of studies, and we don't even need studies. We just know from our own personal example and experience that when you're living in a high density area, it's just not generally, I am generalizing, there are exceptions, it's generally not as pleasant, all right? People like to have a little elbow room. They may want to have a little patio or maybe a little yard where they can plant something to eat, perhaps. If you're in one of those pack 'em and stack 'ems, and let's say that you do have a private vehicle that they don't want you to have, and you have it in the underground parking, and guess what? The electricity is off, so we can't open that gate and you can't get your car out. Oh, by the way, you have an electric vehicle because we made you have an electric vehicle. Well, electricity is turned off. So think about everyone in Lahaina that was trying to charge their electric vehicle that day to actually go and evacuate, and they couldn't do it because they couldn't even get their car charged. So how do you like them apples? Them, as I say, are pretty rotten apples. So putting people into the high density housing is another way of controlling their movement. They can control the thermostat. And of course, they can create their, how do I say it without tricking the algorithm here? The kill, grids. How about that? We talked about the government taking control of the land. The government can say it's so toxic, it's not safe, and we can do better. We will build back better. And then they'll say, well, we'll do it the way the people of Lahaina want. And we'll have a whole, let's have a community meeting. And guess who's going to be at the community meeting? Yeah, those who were coached or possibly paid to say certain things. It's called the Delphi technique. And I will do a video on that in the future. It is a person who is a plant who makes it appear as though they are in favor of what's good for the community, while the actual community people are trying to push against it. But the band leader, the ringleader, is trying to co-opt everybody into following the way that the government wants it to go. Has happened in California city council meetings all over the state. So it just boils down to the evildoers can build back better into their own diabolical plans. Let me know in a comment what I left off this list, why they do it, and how they do it are many different ways that they can, that they have available. And I will be doing a different video on that. I've been having such great information from many of my Healthy Americans that work, for example, in steel mills. They're talking about the heat. They're talking about electrical fires, which is why the water was turned off. You don't want to put water on a microwave fire because it will be popping all over the place and it won't go out. Then it would have been very evident to those that were eyewitnesses to see that the water didn't put the fire out. That's just a little freebie here at the end of the video. Thank you everybody for being on board. Stick with me. I've got another one that's not just about Maui, and this is going to be disaster by the colors. And I want to show you something that I've noticed over the many years of these sort of orchestrated events that have been inflicted upon the unsuspecting population. And I want to see if you've noticed what I have. All right, be right back with you. Give me a few minutes to cue that up. And I am on Instagram. You can follow me there. I'm on BitChute, Rumble, all of the social media platforms. I have a Substack as well. And I look forward to seeing you in the upcoming broadcast. All right, friends, tuning off for now.